How's it? Welcome back to my channel. This is Ricky. Today I'm making a South African recipe called Bobotie. So Bobotie is a savory but sweet mince, and it's an oven bake and it's a bake meets meatloaf. So Bobotie has its influences from Cape Malays. So this is one of those South African dishes that has influences from other parts of the world, and in this case Malay. So in South Africa there is a big Malay community within Cape Town that have been there for hundreds of years and have developed their own culture, and they have brought in foods from around the area and also combined their food with food from other parts of the world. And Bobotie is a perfect example of this. So it's a mixture of Malay culture as well as European culture into one. So this has become a unique dish from South Africa. Bobotie is another one of those recipes that there is no specific method. There's a lot of different varieties out there, and you can also be creative as you wish. The main similarities from all Bobotie recipes is that there's mince in it, there's curry, and there's some sort of sweetness. Usually there is a South African chutney. Mrs. Bull's chutney will go inside of this. Otherwise you can also use some apricot jam. So it's a combination of mince, curry, and a chutney of some sort. Otherwise everything else can be played around with. If you don't have some of these ingredients, it's fine, you can substitute with something else. You can also play around with the spices and tune it to the way that you wish to do it. So Bobotie is best served with Mrs. Bull's chutney. So this is a must when it comes to any South African cuisine. You need to have this. If you don't, get sorted. Yeah. So it's a comfort food, it's delicious. So let's get started and let's make this now. First things first, let's soak the bread. Remove the crust from the bread and cut it into chunks. We now want to soak this in some milk. Usually this is made with white bread, but today I have whole grain bread, and whole grain bread is just fine. Allow that to soak while we get everything else ready. Heat up a deep pan on a low medium heat and add a good chunk of butter to it. Once it's melted, add in the onions and allow it to soften for a few minutes. Add in all of the spices except for the garlic and the bay leaves. Give it a good stir, and then you can throw in a couple of bay leaves. Allow the spices to toast for a minute or two. Once they become aromatic, add in the tomato paste, followed by the apricot jam and the chutney. Mix this for about 30 seconds and then add in the garlic, followed by the mince. We want the mince to have a little bit more liquid in it, so I'm going to add in half a cup of water. Once the meat has browned and cooked all over, add in the zest of lemon, the juice of 1 lemon, give it a good stir, followed by adding in the sultanas. Bring this to a low heat. I allowed the mince to simmer for about 10 minutes. It doesn't really need that long because it's going to go back in the oven to cook even further. So this has been sitting now for a while to cool down, and I'd like it to cool down even further. But while that's happening, preheat the oven at 180 degrees. The next step, we're going back to the milk that's been soaking, and we want to strain all of that milk out of the bread. So just use your hands. It's a bit messy and a bit gross, but strain as much of the milk as you can. Once you've strained all of the milk out of the bread, get the remaining milk that might have some bread in it and just strain it through a sieve, just to make sure that there's no bread in that. Whisk the 2 eggs and the softened bread until it's become all gluggy. Before we add in the bread and milk mixture, make sure you take out the bay leaves as well as the cinnamon. We now want to incorporate the bread and egg mixture, and make sure you stir until it's thoroughly combined. I know this looks gross, but it's going to be good. So mix the bread and egg into the mince. Once the mince and egg mixture is all incorporated, transfer this into an oven-proof dish. Set that aside, and now we want to get started with the topping of the Bobotie. We want to make sure we have enough liquid to completely cover the top of the mince. Crack open another 3 eggs. Whisk the eggs very well. Whisk the milk and eggs thoroughly. Feel free to add some salt and pepper to this if you wish. Once the egg and milk mixture is thoroughly combined, Pour this all over the bobotie and then top it with some bay leaves and place it in the oven for about 30 minutes. The bobotie is ready. It's been in the oven for 30 minutes. The house smells like the mixture of a cake meets spice cake. I can smell the cinnamon with the egg, and it's got a very aromatic flavor. It's like a cake has just come out of the oven. However, it's savory. I'm going to grab a nice spoonful for myself and have a taste. That's come out perfectly. The mince has a little bit of firmness, but it's not as dense as a meatloaf. The flavors are good. It's not actually too sweet. The 2 tablespoons of chutney and apricot jam was enough. However, this gives us room to add additional chutney to the plate if we want to. So the curry is nice, the mince is good. The mince has a nice deep flavor of the cinnamon as well as the curry and other spices. The color of the turmeric has really infused into the mince, and the egg layer on top has added an extra layer of texture to it. This is comfort food at its best. Thank you for tuning in. This was a pleasure to make. Feel free to subscribe. I've also got a playlist up above with other South African recipes. If you want to go and tune in, feel free. So until next time, bye. Hey, it's me from the future. Just wanted to give you a heads up on what happened with the bobotie. I had some the next day when it was cold in the fridge, and it was even better. I didn't even heat it up, I just ate it cold, and it was even more delicious. The sweetness really came out. The 24 hours that I gave it in the fridge allowed the flavors to become even better. So this is the perfect leftover food, and you don't even have to heat it up. So give it a go.